everyone. So today we have a very good topic for those developers who want to code in React. I think it is very important to understand when you do the coding in React, some of the important concepts which always play a very crucial role when it comes to creating a component and updating the states and using Redux. So I will talk about some of the most top interesting facts and top interesting concepts in React, which plays very important role when it comes to the optimization of an application which is created in React, or let's say saving memories, render time, and things like that. So without wasting time, let me quickly start. So to save time, I already created some samples over here. I'll try to cover as much as I can in this video, and then we will have another session where we will talk about some more examples. Okay, so you see here I have examples which are I already prepared for you guys. So let me quickly start with memoization. I'm kind of following a different way of giving you an understanding of the concepts. For example, use memo hooks, use callback hooks. You have seen that particular interview questions and you try to Google it many times. But I think it makes an impact when you see in real, in the code and in the browser, what impact does it make, right? So I just thought to have this with you guys straight away. You can see that real impact of using use memo. So uh, what is memo, right? So memo is a word which is connected to another English word which is called memoization, meaning you are memoizing something, like you are storing something somewhere in the memory so that you can reuse it later, right? So within React, you have React library already. In that, you have memo, which is a higher order component that memoizes a component rendered output. And why? So that it skips the re-rendering if props haven't changed. So let's say when we say props haven't changed, meaning if the prop, so for example, it's let's say the name is not changed, it will not re-render it. So problem of unnecessarily re-rendering when a component re-render, like when a parent component re-render, even if the child props remains same, is a very common problem, right? So you have many components where you have one parent component, and in that you are using many child components. For example, let's say you have a panel, right? In that panel, which is a parent component, you let's say have an input group, one component, and then another component could be a search bar, another. So these are all child components. So let's say we have to make sure that we should not do unnecessarily re-render when a parent component re-render, even if the child props remains same. What we can do, here's the solution. We can use React.memo, because React.memo is used for the same thing. It memoizes a component rendered output. Okay. Okay, how we can see this in real action? So this is my application which is already running. Let me quickly go to the application and see. So this is all code which you can see is all running. So I'll quickly start with this React memo. So here is the code. Let me quickly explain you what code I'm writing in. It's a very basic code. You see here I'm exporting example1.memo. Okay, and then over here this is the component which I created. This component has some state which is where we are maintaining the count. We are using use state hook, and then React memo example, and then we have an on click method which is increasing the count, parent count, and then over here line number 14 we are rendering a child component, right? We are rendering a child component. So uh, yeah, so that is the basic thing. Just to give an idea, what I mean, I have created all these JavaScript examples, which are very common, popular React examples, and very basic concept, which are very important for the performance and optimization of React application. So app.js is something which is very simple and straightforward. Like you see here, I just use router to have all these links, and then when we click on that we can go to specific component, right? So just to share with you like how my application is running. All right, so Yeah, so now let's go and check what this child component and how this child component is working. So now if we see the console, I clicked on React.memo. Okay, so this is my button which is increasing the count, and hello React. All right, so this is printing the hello React. um I just let me quickly hit this way. So you see here, when I said say example one, it rendered child rendered, line number 4. And when you change anything into the parent state, what is this button doing? So this button increment parent count is just increasing the count variable, okay, which is there in the parent component, which is example one memo. So this is a parent component, inside this is a child component. So whenever, what I'm saying, whenever your parent component re-renders, do you need to re-render the child component also? Yes or no? It depends if your prop which you are passing to the child component changes. But let's say we are passing React, which is a fixed prop. I'm not changing React. I'm not saying like React 1 is or gets changed every time. It's a fixed string. I do not want my child components to be re-rendered again and again, right? So that is why I used React.memo here. So you see here, even though we are just clicking here, it is not changing anything. I mean, you don't see anything in the console.log, right? Okay, let me quickly remove this and then see how exactly this will work. So over here, I just remove this, okay? All right, now I just remove the React memo. And now if I just land to this component here, and now you see what will happen. See, you see this? The moment you are changing the parent component state, meaning this count is in the parent component, this is a parent component, line number 9 is something which is one state which exist in the parent component. So whenever you are changing anything into the parent component, no matter what, your child component has same thing which you passed always, it will always get re-rendered. Why? Because we are not using React memoization concept here. So I think you got it right. Uh, so that is the reason why I mean, you can save a lot of render time. So let's say you got here like child one, um, and there are many other components. As I said the example, right, you have a panel which has a search box, which has a filter box, another component, input box, another component. So just imagine, let's say you are doing any change in the parent component, all those components are getting re-rendered. You are totally wasting the memory, you're totally wasting the time. So it's always good to use React.memo in order to save unnecessarily re-renders when parent component re-rendered if child props remains the same. All right, so I think this particular examples gives you a very clarity on using React.memo. What are the cases when you should use that? The definition is very simple. React.memo is high order component that memoizes a component rendered output, right? So this is a rendered output, okay? Skipping re-renders if the props haven't changed. So if you're not changing the props, they are not going to re-render this child component. All right, so this is very good example for React.memo, okay? Now, coming to the next topic, which is called lazy loading, okay? So let me quickly jump to lazy loading over here. So now example 2, I was lazy loaded. What does it mean, right? So lazy loading is also a very important concept. Why it is an important concept? So I think we all have been doing a lot when it comes to importing something. Let's say you have a component, all right, and that particular component is having many child components. So the common practice which everyone's do is like, okay, we want to use something, just import it in the very beginning, and then wherever it is needed, it will be injected automatically, right? That was something that is a standard way of doing that. Uh, but React give you something which is called dynamic imports, right? Dynamic import, it actually load components only when they are needed. So what is the advantage we are getting it? The advantage that we are getting it here is it improves the initial load performance. So let's say this is my home page, all right, and I have 20 import statements which are importing 20 components. So if I do those things in a dynamic way, when the application loads, all my import statements will not be executed. And if they are not going to be executed, it will be very, very good in the initial load performance for the application. I mean, yes, I would definitely say it depends on the use case, how many components you want to make visible to the user when user opens a page, right? But I would definitely say for every application, it is not mandatory to have all those components loaded when the application loads. There are some components which are only enabled when you click some button. For example, let's say there is a toggle button, right? When you click that, then only the panel is visible. So why to load that particular panel when you know the fact that this is something which can be dynamically loaded? So yes, lazy loading is again a very good important concept which allows you to dynamically import load components only when they are needed, improving the initial load performance. So it simply means you are not going to import it here, right? No import statement, simple and clear. And but if we are not writing any import statement, how we are lazily dynamically importing it? This is the syntax. You can use react.lazy. All right, react.lazy can be used. So react.lazy will dynamically import this component, okay? And suspense here, which you used right here from the React, it renders a fallback, okay? It renders a fallback loading until the component is loaded. So let's say even though you have to show something to the user, so you can render the fallback also. So there you can use suspense. So always, this is a very important concept. I thought to bring it with you. I mean, you cannot see anything in the console, but it is very important concept about lazy loading, dynamically importing any component when it is needed, not all of a sudden all the import statement. It improves the initial load performance. So whenever you talk about initial load performance, let's say you have an application which is taking too much time during the initial load, you can think of that. You can think of dynamic importing components. So yeah, that was point two, the very important concept, lazy loading. Now we coming to the another very good concept which is called use callback. All right, this is use callback. So let me go to the code of use callback. Use callback is similar to what we have in what we have seen in like use memoization, right? So we have use callback, we have use I mean memoization. These are all concepts which works always hand in hand. So use callback, it memoizes functions, preventing them from being recreated on every render. You remember when we were talking about memoization, we say that memoization is a higher order component that memoizes the component's rendered output, right? It memoizes the component's rendered output, but here use callback, it memoizes functions, okay? Preventing them from being recreated on every render. What does it mean? It simply means, let's say we have a problem. Uh, let's say you have a component, in that component you have one function, and no matter what, your function looks very good, but do you know when it comes to um compiling a JavaScript program and running it at runtime, that function really hidden, but that function is created again and again when the child component re-renders. What does it mean? So over here, let me quickly explain you the code here. So this is a very basic example where we have a simple HTML, we have a button, we are clicking on the button and then changing something over here, which is again the parent component. We have count, and then we have a child component. There we have handle click method, which is over here. Uh, and then we are clicking that particular method, and that's it. We have child component here, which I have memoized. So I think with this we are sorted. This child component, no matter what, how many times we click on increment parent count, this child component will never get re-rendered. Why? Because okay, this is also important to understand why it will not get re-rendered, because we are not changing the props. Now you just think on click is a method, and over here we are passing a reference to handle click method, and let's say by some reason the reference to this handle click method change, and when it get changed, it will change I mean, the reference to any method will get changed when it is created every time a new method, right? Whenever you get a new method, this handle click reference will be changed. And whenever this reference, or let's say the props change, then only this component should get re-rendered, right? Otherwise, it should not. So in our React memo example, we have seen that we are passing only a string. So this string is constant, fixed. It is not changing. So this component will not re-render. But over here, um, this handle click method, this child component will re-render if the reference to this method is changed. So this is again a very important concept. So now, reference to a method getting changed, how? How we can avoid that? We can avoid that using use callback. So over here, you see I use callback here, okay? And then when I click on console.click, you will see this particular, I mean, you will see over here, which is compare the current and previous handle click references, and they will always be same. Okay, so let me run this use callback example 3. Okay, so this is what you see, true, true. Now if I just see, so every time when I see here, the reference is same. The reference is not changing. All right. Reference is not changing. Reference is not changing. So these handles like the previous reference and the previous one and the current reference always same. So it is not changing because we are using use callback here, right? And the child component, you see, child component has something called child rendered. So you see, child rendered is not printed, right? Child rendered not printed because the reference is same. Meaning this handle callback, we pass it, so whatever reference you have here, it will always be same. So this component will not re-render. So we are saving two things here. Component re-rendering is saved and function creation is also saved. So let's break this. Let's see the problem. Okay, all right. Okay, so now what will happen? Let me quickly remove this. Now what will happen? Now you see, I removed this particular use callback from here, line number 12. Now handle click is a plain function which exists in this component. Every time when you do any change into the parent component by clicking this method, every time, okay, by this button, you will make this parent component re-render, yes or no? When the parent component re-render, this handle click method will be created as a new method. Handle click will be a new reference all the time. Okay, let me quickly check. All right, load this again. Here we go. You see, false, meaning this previous handle click reference and the new handle click reference, they both are different, right? And you see here, child is also rendered, meaning if this method is changed, I mean the reference to this method is changed, you pass the props. So this child component, remember the definition of use memo? This child component only re-render, I mean, if you're using, even if you are using use memo, it will only re-render when the props change. All right. So over here, yeah. So over here, when the props change, then only it will re-render. Otherwise, it will always memoize it. Over here, we are good with this component. We are using use memo. So on click, this reference to this on click, if that change, then only this component re-render. And this is what we are doing here. So over here, the handle click will be created every time when the parent component state change. So this will always, you see here, see, this is always rendering the child component, and all the time you see here, the parent component reference is the same. Okay, so this is how you see, it is a concept, very important concept. That's why I told you use memo and use callback, they both work hand in hand. Okay, so the moment you're creating a child component memoization using use memo or React.memo, make sure whatever props you are passing in that, if there are any functions which you are passing in there, make sure that those functions references are not changed if the parent props is changed. So make sure you are using callback in a good way. Okay, so you see here, now if I put the callback in place, everything work without any issue. You see, no rendering to the child component again and again. And also this reference is same. I think this is the best way I can explain. Anyone can explain you the use memo. For those who have been trying to understand use memo and use callback for a long time, I thought to share this very simple, basic way to understand the concept of use memo and use callback. All right. So, with this, let's move to the next important concept, which is also very important and popular, is called strict mode. All right. So, strict mode. Uh, I think strict mode is a very important concept when you want your developers to see warnings. So see, you know that I mean people developers know that there are many times they do mistakes in the code, uh, meaning they're using some deprecated libraries. For example, unsafe life cycle or side effects, potential issues that can be there, some silent issues in the code. So all those things, they are hidden from the developers when they code. They are not visible. But when you're using React.strict mode, what you're getting out of the box, all these things will be visible on your browser. Okay, in console. So warning appears in the console for potential issues, encouraging best practices. So that's what it exactly means. So I definitely would say that you should always have this strict mode at least on your dev environment enabled, so that you can have those warnings visible. So and it is really really very helpful to see the warnings into the by warning I would say that you see something here into the console, uh, which is in yellow color, and that's how it exactly works. So you can play around with any deprecated library here, and you can see in the console.log those warnings are visible, right? For example, a very common example, I would say, let's have a list, and then you try to render that list onto the UI using map method. But let's say li element which you are trying to render, you're not passing any key, which is an important thing. All right, so your code might be happy with that, but when you run it onto the browser, you will see the warnings visible because you're using strict mode. And there are many other things which you can use and see as a warning. Deprecated APIs, as I said. Okay, identifying potential issues by highlighting unsafe life cycle or side effects, and all those things. So I'll not take much time here, but yeah, it is also one of the concept. Keys. Well, I just told you, and it is here. So keys, they are very very important concept. Whenever uh, you have any component where you want to render a list, make sure that you have this key element set for your li, right? And why I'm saying this, keys identify list items uniquely, and it is also connected to some performance. And why I say that? Because it improves the reconciliation efficiency. All right. uh, I think there is a concept which one should know here. Like, I think most of us, they already know React struggles to update DOM elements without unique identifiers. And the DOM re-rendering and rendering, that concept, virtual DOM, okay, if you know that particular concept, you will easily find it out what is the role of this key. So I tell you on a very high level, try to cover this React virtual DOM in a separate video, but on a very high level, for this example you see here, key plays a very significant role, because without keys, React will struggle to update DOM elements without unique identifiers. All right. So use unique key props for all the elements that you want to render as part of your list items. Okay. Um, so this will help React to use key to map changes in the virtual DOM efficiently. So see, this key, you can skip it, but remember, virtual DOM, you are making React troubles. You're creating troubles for React virtual DOM engine to render the virtual DOM efficiently, because that is where it plays the crucial role. All right. So I have this keys also here. So this is a very common concept, but yeah, if I just remove this, uh, so you see here, yeah, it is rendered, but with this particular error. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. All right, so let's move to the next topic, which is called pure component. Well, this is also one of the good concept. Okay, so pure component. What are pure component actually? pure component in React, they prevents unnecessarily re-render by implementing shallow prop state comparison. Okay, what do you mean by shallow prop state comparison? So shallow prop state comparison, it simply means, so let's say you have let me explain you with a very simplistic with a problem in hand. So component re-renders even when prop state don't change. Let's say this is a problem. Let's say you have a component which re-renders even when the prop and state don't change. What you should do? You should extend React.pure component. You should extend your component with React.pure component. And what it will do? It automatically skips re-rendering if prop and state are shallowly equal. Okay. So now I think you got this. So you over here, you see, we have a pure child, which is extending React.pure component. And we have a render method, which is rendering this, and return the HTML is like hello this dot props dot name. All right. Um, and now we're passing this name here as a prop. And now over here, so this is the parent component. And now we are kind of clicking a button, which is this dot increment we are calling, and we're changing something into the into this state. And now if I run this, pure component. So you see pure child re-rendered, and now I just do this. So this is not re-rendering, correct? Because every time when we are when I'm incrementing this, all right. So this dot state count, this dot state dot count plus one. Okay, this method is being called. Now, um, let me quickly write this value here. This dot state. Okay. Now, what happened? All right. This dot state dot count. Okay. So So you see this is increasing 10, 11, 12. All right. So this is increasing. But now over here, pure child, where there is no change into the props, we are passing the React. So you can use React.pure components. This is kind of the same concept, but over here you are using React.pure component to prevent unnecessary rendering by implementing a shallow prop state comparison, right? So now let me quickly remove this and make it very simple component like this. All right. Now if I just, one second, sorry, and it's component. Okay. Now I just, let me clear this, and over here, now if you implement, you see here, this is rendering again and again. So pure component, they are also very important concept. Whenever you have, code like this, where you have classes, and you want that your child component should not re-render, advanced concept, you can go for memoization. Okay. And if you're using if you want to stick to some other way of preventing the unnecessary re-render, you can create a pure component for that, because pure component will automatically prevents unnecessarily re-renders, and by implementing a shallow and prop state comparison. So there is a concept called shallow and prop state comparison, which it do automatically, and then this way it just help it. All right, so this is connected to the pair component. Dynamic import. I think I already explained you dynamic import, which is the part of lazy loading. Dynamic import and lazy loading both are same concept. You should not get worried about that. React.lazy is a very important function that you can use out of the box, which will save initial load performance of the application. So that's pretty much all as part of this video. I have many other concepts here: context API, should component update, virtual DOM. Believe me or not, these are all very super important concepts which are important for any developer, React developer, to know, so that whenever he code for any application, these concepts gives him, I would say, very good points when it comes to optimization, performance. No matter what, you can do the code review also. All these things, they will be automatically coming out of the box. Thank you very much. I see you in another video, and we'll cover all those in a separate video.